Women have silent heart attacks all the time.
It's a shocking new intentional living with ICU's Amy Kemp.
We don't know how to have help. We don't know how to accept help. And it's really affecting our health. It's affecting our families. It's affecting our work.
Discussing the absolutely ridiculous pressure we as women face.
And men are smart enough to not try to do it all.
Putting busy culture on blast.
I feel like it's like there's this thing, we can have it all, we can do it all. Mm-hmm. And because we have it all, we have to do it all.
Busy is a very safe place to hide.
And helping us realize that slowing down means living more.
There's a point where you can't work any harder. You've got to slow down and you've got to grow you. There has to be a tangible statement to the world that I am worth that level of being taken care of. That's when things start to change.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now.
Hi, Amy. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I'm so honored and excited to speak with you today, especially about habits. It's really funny. I know I kind of gave you my little spiel at the beginning, how I like to keep these conversations as like intuitively flowing as possible, let the messages come through. But not only does that work for our listeners, it actually works for ourselves. I find that once I started like digging into who you are and what we're going to talk about today, I was like, wow, you couldn't be a guest and we couldn't be having this conversation at a better time in my own personal life as I am making so many changes, so many adjustments in my life, whether from health to my kids going back to school to starting new projects and realizing like the habits I have created don't always serve me and changing them can be a challenge, and you are kind of like the habit queen. So, I mean, I'm so excited to like dive in. I even did your assessment and you can tell us all about it and how to get it because if I showed you my scores, you'd be like, oh my God, honey, we need some help. So welcome, Amy. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm super happy to be here. And there's something really tender about transitions. There's something really important about them also. Even small things like kids going back to school, while they're not, it's not like you move to a new state, it changes the dynamics of the energy in your house and in your work and in your life. And so I think this is a really good space to have this conversation as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you have been working with people to help them realize their thought patterns, their thought behaviors, their, what did you call it? Your thought habits. We hear all these different phrases, but I mean, I've never heard it called a thought habit before, yet we all have them. And I've talked about like changing things. It's hard to make any change in your life. No one wants to do it. First of all, we don't like things that are different. We don't like new. It's unknown. But two, we are so programmed to do things the way we always do them, even if we want to make these healthy choices in our life. So what are the steps we need to take to start changing our habits? For one, maybe even realize the habits that we have aren't serving us. Like I know for me, I'm doing right now, I'm trying to, 3 years later, I'm still trying to lose baby weight. Anyone who watches the podcast will know I talk about it all the time. You get busy and you follow habits. And so that's a big place in my life where I'm trying to change these habits. And now over the summer, finding out that I have like I'm celiac or at least gluten intolerant, like just changing eating habits. I'm noticing that one specifically, I've noticed like I'm not picking up things off my kids' plates and just like finishing, little things that are subconscious that we don't know we're doing. I'm so much more aware. So is that the first step? Becoming aware.
Okay. Yes. And there's an important distinction in the work I do between habits that are just external behavioral habits and actual habits of thinking. So the tool that I use, the Habit Finder, it is a snapshot of your subconscious habits of thinking, which of course drive all of the external behaviors that drive us crazy. I always think of it, all of the areas in which we set New Year's resolutions that we don't keep are the areas where you really get to experience your subconscious habits of thinking. So health, money, relationships, time, and then those external habits. It can be silly things like procrastination but they show up, the symptom is that external behavior. What drives it are all of these habits of thinking that are taking place at this level that we're not even aware of. It's happening underneath the surface of our lives. So when you address some of these habits of thinking, the external behaviors tend to resolve themselves more easily. But if we focus on the behavior and try to will ourselves and discipline ourselves into submission, it can only last so long before you just give up and, return to the old way of doing it. So I'm really interested in this longer, slow change than the quick, short-lived change.
Okay. So how do we get to those?
So you said it. The first step is just awareness. Most of the time when I walk through the Habit Finder assessment with someone, they will say either, how did you know that from that? Or it's almost like when I took it the first time, I was almost a little ticked off. Like, I didn't even know that about myself. But now that I'm seeing it everywhere. So I'll give you an example because sometimes it feels a little foggy. One of the things that I learned as a client using this tool was that I was constantly trying to fix people or to solve their problems for them or to step in and manage. And I was in a sales kind of management role. So I was trying to basically create their success. And then I was taking responsibility for their failures. I had no idea I was doing this ever. And I think my intentions were good. So people put up with me, right? But what I learned was I wasn't only doing that with my work. I was doing that at home. I was doing that with my kids. I was doing that in so many different areas of my life. And I just didn't know that I was doing that. And so I had to first just acknowledge like, oh, there it is again. And there it is again. And there it is again. And that person has to make their own choices and I can't take responsibility for it, which allowed me to then be able to lead way more people. And it just really affected my ability to lead in general. So, but again, if you would have asked me before I took it, I would have never been able to put words to that. Or did I know I was doing it on purpose? I just didn't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of times I think we might not know, but sometimes we do know. like I know I do that. I know I try and fix people's problems. I answer my husband's question or I finish a sentence before he ever got there. And I cannot tell you how many times he's like, you do not know what I'm going to say. Why are we having this conversation? Like it's so frustrating to him. And I know I do it with my kids. I'll do it, in other ways. And I'm aware. So even if we are aware, but we still fall back into these patterns, what do we do to start to bring about these changes? Because like you said, we can't will our way. I don't think about it. And when he says it, I'm just like, I feel bad. You're right. Why am I consistently doing this? Like, it's like something that we just do. We don't think.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me tell you, there's a couple of things.
What's next?
So I'll speak a little bit to what probably is driving even what you're describing, which is that you're probably an obsessive thinker. I haven't looked at your assessment, but I'm guessing that you think and think and think and think and think, and your brain is constantly thinking and thinking and thinking, right? Obsessive thinkers tend to get a lot done. They tend to overfunction most of the time, actually, and they tend to allow people around them to underfunction because they're overfunctioning, or because they're thinking so much. They often do have the best idea, or they often can come up with the solution, right?
I like this assessment.
Okay, let me get to the risk because this is the part that's harder. The harder part is that inadvertently we can plow over people in our constant movement. We can plow over and not give other people even a chance to offer their perspective or to give them a chance to even think about it because we're moving so fast. They just think, well, she's going to do it anyhow. I'm just going to step back. And so then we get resentful because they're not chipping in, but we're not really letting them because we're going so fast, right? So one of the things I work on with clients who are, I'll say, if you are an overthinker and you're an obsessive thinker, you tend to get very attached to your ideas because you've thought about them for so long. So then when something threatens your idea or the way you know it should be done, your body will respond as if a bear was attacking you, meaning adrenaline, absolute fight or flight. I'm going to win this battle. I will survive. Subconsciously that happens really quickly, and we don't make great relational decisions when we're in that survival mode. It tends to cause brokenness in relationships or difficulty with people. So one of the things I work on a ton, myself included, I fall into this category, is that I can't work as much. I've got to have more guilt-free playtime. It is not negotiable for me, because if I have too much time to work, I overthink, overdo, get overly attached, and I go too fast for everyone around me. And so actually by inserting more scheduled guilt-free play, there's a whole chapter in my book about this, but by inserting more scheduled guilt-free play into my life, I've actually been able to get more done because my team can keep up with me. The people around me aren't frustrated with how fast I'm moving. I'm less attached to my ideas because I haven't been thinking about them all the time. And so I've got to make sure that for me, that is not like a frivolous thing to have recreation and play and hobbies and whatever. It is required. It is required for me to be my best.
Okay, so I'm getting anxiety thinking about this. I mean, you have me pegged, this whole idea of like guilt-free play or just having time to be joyful. Like I told you, I took the summer off to deal with some health issues. And the whole time I felt extremely guilty. I actually do not know how to have fun anymore because I've been performing at such a high level, doing so much. My mentors always told me, like, stop trying to figure it out, allow it to go. And as intuitive as I am, as in flow as I am, I still like manufacture it all. It might be the producer in me. It's the overactive mind, I'm sure. But like, how do we allow ourselves to have that guilt-free time? Because even with kids, all of it. Yeah.
Okay. So have you had experiences in your life where the creation of something felt not effortless? It wasn't that you weren't working at it, but there was a flow to it and a real intuitive. What did that feel like when you were in that mode of creation?
So I think like in my circumstances is like, I really enjoy creating. I enjoy my work so much. I am a writer. I'm a producer. I'm a creator. I do these things. So I actually find pleasure in it. So when I step away, like I want to be back doing it. I find it recharges me. So I think, and I think that's I don't know if it's a lot of people, but like that's my norm. So like, how do you find that balance between, when you find this pleasure and joy in what you're doing and your work is actually your creation. Yeah. But you're like, no, I need to stop this and give myself time to, be with the family, relax, go do something fun. Sure. And how do you would enjoy it in the moment?
Sure. And when you have little kids, that's not always fun.
No, it's not.
That's actually not fun. There are many times, sometimes they're really fun, but the majority of the time is monotonous and very circular and there's no progress. And it can be really just difficult when you have that kind of a ambitious brain who wants to. So absolutely. I think the guilt-free play that I'm speaking of are the things that you do where your brain gets a break. So it doesn't, for a busy mind, it's not just sitting on a chair. That's not restful to me. I do not enjoy that. But for example, like I play pickleball. I love to play pickleball. When I'm playing pickleball, I can't think about anything having to do with work. And so for 2 hours, I will go and literally think about nothing but that game. that is scheduled guilt-free play where I actually am recharging. Or I love to play cards. I loved to go before they passed away. My husband's grandparents were in assisted living. I could go and visit with them. I would not think about work when I was there. So it's the things you do, dinner with a great friend, a really great, fun book, even a great TV series. I mean, there's a difference between one episode where you enjoy it and then you're on the fifth one to escape. That's a whole another thing. But these things, these recreation pieces that fill your cup, it's more difficult when the kids are the ages of yours to fit that in, because there's just a small window that you even have available to do that kind of thing. So if it's just carving it out once or twice a week, but on a regular basis, giving your brain that break from, because sometimes when you're with little kids too, your brain is just spinning because you're kind of bored.
It's boring.
Yes,
it is.
Yes. I mean, they're doing the same things again and again. And, but it's, again, I think you're just in this season where you will have limited windows, but making sure still that you schedule it in is critical to the long-term health of your body and to the health of your creative process as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is moms in general, or people in general, but moms in general, I think we struggle with this because one, we become so engrossed in our children, and then it's we forget what brings us joy. And then the mom guilt comes in if you actually find something that it takes you away from your kids so that you can have joy. So there's a lot of different factors here, but even, or even in the industry that you and I both are in and having these kinds of conversations and working in this space, I find that, what used to bring me joy is a great book. I love to read. And I've tried over and over and over again in the last couple of years to get back into reading, and then my shelves is stacked this high with next to my bedstand with all these self-help books. And finally, it was this summer, I said to myself, no, I am on overload with self-help. I have talked to every expert out there. I know way too much. Sometimes it feels like we're drinking out of a water hose that we can't even implement, or not a fire hose. We can't even implement these things into our life. Let's get back to what I truly enjoyed. What would keep me up as a kid at night with the flashlight under the covers when my parents are saying go to bed and yelling at me when we're on vacation. No, come play with us when all I want to do is sit on the lounge chair and read my book, is the fun books. And so I started to pull those out again. This is just as important as this self-help space is to find that fun. But a lot of the times we don't even know and we don't remember what those things are. So it's we have to experiment. Or go back to where we were as children, what used to light us up. Because I know so many people have come on the show and talked about it. I've dealt with it in therapy, where you say, your therapist says, what brings you joy? What are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? And it's I don't know. It's we forget. I don't know why.
Yes. And it's a discipline to keep it as a part of your life. So I often do an audit of the next 3 to 6 months and make sure. For me, one of mine also is having once a month some sort of adventure. And that doesn't mean, it could be going into the city. We live near Chicago. Let's say we're going to go to the Air Spanish baths, where they have all these different kinds of baths that you can go in. I've never done it before. That sounds kind of cool. It could be that, or it could be going on ATV rides in Utah, or it could be, but I used to feel like that was time away from work, and that was, I almost felt bad for doing that. What I've realized is that in order for me to continue to do this kind of work and hold the kind of space I do for the level of leaders that I work with, it is essential that I do that. It is literally the most important investment in my work that I can make, and my family also, because those are all withdrawals. So if I'm not depositing, I cannot show up. I show up emotionally stripped and raw. And to hold space for people, I've got to be really, really, really present, very much kind of in the flow of letting things flow through me. And I can't do that if I'm exhausted and drained and worn out. I also, just as like a little encouragement to you, it gets easier. like as they continue to get older, there are different challenges with older kids. But it does get you start to become more and more of yourself again. And you realize, oh, that was a season of intensity, because to take a little tiny baby, like these little tiny humans, to the age of 5 is a monumental lift.
Okay.
So just like, no, there is light on the other side, where you do have time where they're off playing with their friends, and you will have more time where you can just sit and read that book. So you are just in a season too. Sometimes that's just helpful to know, like it's not forever. Right?
You're in team, we're done having kids, versus team, let's have some more at this. My husband and I have this conversation all the time, with our youngest going to school now. It's like, oh, but I miss, I'm just starting to get that taste of freedom. It's like, what am I going to do with my time? And I think I think we know that.
Yes.
That it is a season. I'm even an older mom. So this goes back to habits. I had my kids later.
Yes.
And we have, it's like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like I lived 37 years of my life working hard, playing hard, doing all this stuff, creating all these habits, all of a sudden to have your life shift later. I mean, this is a vote for people. If you want to have kids young, I would say have them younger, because you don't have so much time to form all these habits and now be like, what the hell just happened? And now we have to try and like go back, I'm 42. Like, just trying to get back to where I was. It's like this weird balance. And as women, I think it's even harder, because it's like I don't know, maybe it's just because we are so connected to our kids at that young age.
It's the paradox of parenting also. I'm dropping my second. We have 3 kids, almost 21, 18, and 13. And we're dropping the second one off for college. My daughter already left, but it's this duality of he's so ready. I'm so proud of him. I don't want him to stay. Like it is time for him to go.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, he's going.
Yeah.
And I can't, just like when you drop them off at preschool, it's like, thank the Lord someone's taking them for the day. And I really want them close to me all at the same time.
It's weird. Yes.
You're constantly living in that tension, particularly for women who are ambitious. There's a special tension there that always will exist. What I will also say, particularly as a mom of kids who are leaving, is do the hard of staying in those spaces that don't feel easy. The 3-year-old is building the Tower of Blocks again. Is this ever going to? I remember looking at my clock and thinking, it's only 6:30. I can get to 7:30 bedtime. Just really like. And what I will say is, stay in the heart of it and make sure that you don't just escape to work that feels so much easier and better, and you get affirmation. Stay in the heart of it, because it is worth it in the long run, right? It is worth it. And then there is a day when they leave. And so, but I do remember, like, it was so much easier for me to work. People cheered for me. I was winning. I was making progress. I was getting things done. And then you'd come home and you were like, this is a disaster. I am a mess. And like, these people are frustrating and moody and, but it is like this, I just would say, really keep that priority and protect it, because it's so vital at the same time. Yeah.
So how do we start to actually do this for ourselves so that we can fill our own cup, whether we are in a transition period or whether, our kids have left or we haven't had them yet? How do we start to build these healthy habits so we don't feel so depleted? Because you are right. I thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for the longest time. I wanted kids so bad that it took me so long to get there to have them. When I did, and I got to be the stay-at-home mom for a minute, because COVID happened right when I had my daughter, and so like I was forced stay-at-home mom, and I was just like, this isn't for me. It's so, anyway, first of all, anyone that says moms don't work, stay-at-home moms don't work, oh, you're smoking crack.
It's the hardest job in the whole world.
Hardest job. It doesn't matter how much you want it. It is so much easier to work.
It's the hardest
now,
job.
I'm not going to say, I'm not speaking that for working moms. That's a whole other challenge when you're working with your kids. Both are hard, but wow.
Totally.
You're working
I think it's
all the time.
Really important, particularly as women, that we stay out of any kind of judgment around parenting.
Exactly.
Because some of my best friends, it was their deepest desire, and they did the stay-at-home mom path-based mode. I would have literally, I don't know. I just wasn't, it wasn't my cup of tea. I couldn't have done it and done it well. I also think with each child, my youngest has taught me this. I have no judgment about how you're parenting your child. I used to, I will never forget saying to my husband after our first two, people have locks on their cabinets. Why? Do they not parent? And then we had our Andrew. I mean, we had locks on everything. And we had to put a lock on our front door because he snuck out at 5:45 in the morning, went over to our neighbors who had a new puppy to play with the puppy. He snuck out. We were sleeping. Like this kid, we had to put like an eye hook. I mean, we were locked like so I just have learned like no judgment. I will have no judgment for your parenting because I don't know your kid. I don't know your life. I don't know, right? We're doing the best we can, all of us. And it's better if we're there to support each other. Yeah. Okay. Let me talk a little bit about some of the things that I address in the book that I think are particularly important for women. One of them is unpaid labor. I think there is not nearly enough conversations around this topic for women, which is about in the 1950s, women largely went back to the workforce. Now we know that in 75% of homes, women are working in some capacity outside of the home or, doing something at home that's a job. And yet women have maintained and kept a hold of most of the unpaid labor. This actually has nothing to do with having children either, because there's an unpaid labor survey in my book, and only one of the items has to do with children. The quantity of work that women do outside of work is so significant.
Yes.
And what's happening is, this is the part that I get so fired up about, is that we are doing all of this unpaid labor. So cleaning, obviously, cooking, but also just buying the food. Who's buying all of the clothing in your home? Who is making sure the clothing is ironed or steamed or cleaned or dry cleaned or whatever it needs to be done, right? Hand washed, hung dry. I mean, the whole system. Who's buying all of the gifts? Who's preparing? We just did a high school graduation, right? I mean, my husband showed up for the party and he helps, but who ordered the tent, decided what we were having, sent out the invitations, made the list, all of that, right? And again, a lot of that work I want to do. I enjoy doing. It's important to me. I want to do it in a certain way. But some of it also is just we have kept it and not shared it, or not hired people to help us with it. And then when we don't get the promotion because we're so exhausted, we're not showing up for our best with our work, or we don't grow the business to the size of someone else and we feel like there's something wrong with us. I just want to say it might just be because you're doing 2 full-time jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
Not because there's anything wrong with you.
Yes.
And then there's older parents and family members that we're caring for, right? Also. So that's like the other side of then the kids. So I guess what I want to talk to women about a ton is this idea of unpaid labor and how can we redistribute it more fairly? How can we share it and offload it a little bit more? Where can we hire people to help us? I just talked to a client today. She was like, I really know I shouldn't be dusting. She runs a multi-million-dollar business and she is dusting her living room. And again, I mean, no judgment, but in her family upbringing, that was what the women did.
Right.
And she's like, I'm so embarrassed to have someone come in. If it's a mess, I'd be cleaning for the clean. We don't know how to have help. We don't know how to accept help and how to hire help and let people help us for the most part. And it's really affecting our health. It's affecting our families. It's affecting our work. And for like a woman like that, her gifting is not dusting. Her gifting is like strategic business growth, right?
Yeah. So are we doing this to ourselves? Has this been taught? Are these the habits that we've brought along through the generations? Or are we doing that for our own children too? Like,
both.
I know you have a daughter. I have a daughter. It's like, I don't want that for her.
No.
And you're lucky you have daughters and a daughter and sons. I have a daughter and a son. So I see personally, even at the young age that my kids are, how I treat them differently and my expectations for them
are so different.
These are subconscious habits that we have created and that we are living into. Like you said, my husband is extremely hands-on with our family. He actually cooks most of the meals at night. It's really funny because we will cook the same exact things. I mean, my kids are very limited on their diet right now. We're mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, we're in that zone. No adventure zone. And we will make the same mac and cheese the same exact way. They won't eat a bite out of what I make. They'll only eat Daddy's. So it's like, it's funny, we have these things. So he actually is very hands-on with everything in our day to day. And he works from home. I work from home. So we can both be very present parents also, which is amazing. Yet I'm still carrying that load. And is it just kind of like what we've been brought up into and born into?
And it's the emotional load too, right? So it's not just the work itself, but I had to make an appointment with one of my kids, his teacher team. He has some special needs and that need to be addressed in school for him to succeed. Well, I'm the one who's scheduling that meeting and then preparing in my mind for it. And my husband will come. But it's that mental load also. Okay, here's the thing. I think one, just acknowledge it. I'm not angry about it. I'm not like saying you shouldn't have to be, I'm choosing a lot of it, right? So I'm choosing to do a lot of that. So the things you hate, hire. Your laundry, your cleaning. I have a friend who owns a cleaning business and employs, she cleans 120 homes. She has employees. I would so much rather give my money to another woman who can work a flexible schedule and do that work for me and pay people and get it taken care of, right? And support her and her family than me be drained and worn out. But I cannot tell you how many people I interviewed for my book who were like, don't tell anyone that I have a cleaning person and I have a nanny and I have this. But you're a leader in a global business. Like, of course you need all that. And men are smart enough to not try to do it all. They're just not going to try it. I mean, they're just saying, this isn't possible. The other thing I think as women we need to be really aware of and use our voices for is spaces where we can grow our businesses or grow our careers are often unavailable to us. It's very difficult for a woman to go golfing for 4 hours. Lots of business takes place on the golf course, right?
Yeah.
Or business before and after hours for chambers are like 7 and 4 or 5. Those are the two worst times for women ever. Right? It's just so difficult. That's when everything is happening at your house that you need to be present for. Okay. So it's using your voice to say, hey, can we do some alternate times for this? Is this really the best way to make sure that we are developing a diversity of leaders within our organization, or even just being aware of how things are scheduled if you have a voice on those types of boards and those types of places where decisions are being made. So there's some of it systemic that's like we've got to address in the bigger picture. Some of it, though, is like we have to let people help us. Yeah, we have to.
We do. But we can't. Sometimes we can't. Like, what if we can't afford the cleaner? Right. And, I think we've been also fed this lie as women that we can have it all. I don't know where that came into play. Maybe it was in the 50s, like you said, when we went into the workforce or whatever it was. But I feel like it's like there's this thing. We can have it all. We can do it all. And because we have it all, we have to do it all. Yeah. And I think it's a load of shit.
I do too.
I don't think we can have it all. We have to make those choices. I think we can take the best, you know, there's pluses and minuses. And as much as I want to have it all, sometimes there's sacrifices that have to be made. So it's like, I think we need to learn to prioritize. Like I hate cleaning. I absolutely hate cleaning. I had a cleaner. Like I said, I was single and didn't have kids for a long time, but I worked crazy long hours, driving from San Diego to LA, being on set, filming, you know, hours at a time, to the point where it's like, I'm not going to come home and clean my house. Just not going to. So I gifted myself a cleaner for the longest time.
Yeah.
I moved across the country. My husband and I changed jobs. We bought a new house. I don't have help with my kids. I have 2 littles. Like I had to give something up. I had to give up my cleaner. It's really hard to go back once you have that. I just got one back. Thank you, baby Jesus. You know, so, you know, it was so nice because it's something I absolutely hate. But we do have seasons sometimes where we can't hire it out. So how do we start to?
Okay, I might push back a little bit. Like what I see happening is it's like, does the chicken come first or the egg? There's something about the decision to say, I am the kind of person who is worthy of having someone take care of me. I deserve to have someone here who can take some of this off my plate. That also tends to increase our income. It makes us show up differently in spaces where opportunities open up. I can't tell you how many times I see women make brave choices to not really sure how this is all going to work, but I'm going to take a chance and hire this person to help me with some of this unpaid labor. And then the promotion opens up, the new role opens up, or a new job opportunity shows up, or their business starts to grow because they're not exhausted. And it's not only just the physical exhaustion. There's a theory, I write about this in the book. It's called the broken windows theory in law enforcement, where if an environment is like graffitied up and the windows are broken, there tends to be more crime. People respond based on how the environment looks. But when we're walking around our house and it's a disaster and we're feeling like a failure and this isn't getting done and that's not getting done and this isn't getting done, then you're also not showing up for that meeting or that job interview or that meeting with that prospective client, or with the same level of energy that you would without that drag. And so I do think a little bit it's the saying, I'm worth it. I'm worth being taken care of, that then causes more money to move toward you in a very cool way.
I mean, this reminds me of what Jen Sincero wrote about, you know, when she had the opportunity to buy, like, I think the Honda or the Audi. I'm paraphrasing the part of one of her books, but it was like she finally allowed herself to take that step to buy the car she really wanted, not knowing how she was going to pay for it. But by doing that, the money came. It's having that faith and taking that step into it.
Yes.
And I mean, even like you're saying, it's like, walking around in the messy house, you're not feeling your best. I will say that if it comes to weight loss, you know, when you don't feel good in yourself, you don't show up properly. And I've always thought that's impeded any type of growth I've personally had. When I feel good in myself, in my body, just like your home, when you feel good in your home, when you feel good in your body, when you feel good, you know, at work,
show up differently,
show up better all around.
I know.
So finding that self-worth.
Yes, that's the root of all
like
of it.
Habit. Is that the root of all of it? Okay.
The root of all of it is worthiness. It is. There's a whole chapter in my book also called Money is a Mirror, but we tend to earn what we really believe we're worth. And I've seen people move from traditional jobs where they get a paycheck to roles where they can make as much as they want, a commission-based role, let's say. And they will find a way to make as much as they were making in the traditional job that paid them a paycheck. And they will self-sabotage. They will create chaos. They will get sick. They will, I've seen people do the craziest things to keep themselves from earning more than what they really believe they're worth. And if you want to know what you really believe you're worth, it's what you're earning right now. I hate that sometimes. I love that sometimes. But it is a worthiness issue. Money moves toward worthiness and feelings of worthiness. There's something really, really tangible about the energy movement of money. It's really powerful. So
how do we start there? How do we start to work on that? Because literally I have my little notepad here. I did your assessment and I wrote down my stuff.
Yeah.
And my scores are like really embarrassingly bad. Like my mental creation, 72. That one's the best I had. Personal fulfillment, 43. We get to self-worth, 12. Like literally 12. Like, holy hell. That's horrible. So how do we begin to build that self-worth?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't fix it. It's a healing process. It gets healed over time as we start to use our ability to mentally create something. So to see what we want to create, to take the millimeter steps of creation, and then to see it kind of come to fruition. Through that process of creation, that's actually how you heal self-worth. There's a journey. It's the journey I take my clients on. We don't start saying, we're going to fix your self-worth. That's like an outcome that happens later. And there's a lot of deeper work that, usually we work on too. But along the way, as you start to see, okay, I have this vision that I want to create. I'm taking these steps, but then I get stuck. That's where we really dig deep into those habits of thinking that are keeping you from what you want. So a lot of people also, it's like, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work harder. And the core message of my book is that you can't outwork your thought habits. There's a point where you can't work any harder. You've got to slow down and do this deeper digging work. You've got to grow you. And then the outcomes tend to show up. Like it's not the working on the outcome, it's the working on you that makes the difference. So what do? You literally invest time and money, and the thing that will feel so selfish when you first do it, which is like, I'm taking the course, I'm hiring the coach, I'm going to this event. I am deciding and I'm putting it on the line that I am worth this investment. That's when things start to change. Not quickly. I'm not suggesting that it's like an overnight change, but there has to be a tangible statement to the world that I am worth it. And I think that's what happens, even silly things like hiring someone to clean, is that what you're saying to the world is, I am worth it. I am worth not being exhausted. I am worth being able to come home at night and actually go outside and water my flowers or go for a walk or play with my kids. I'm not just around here crazy doing all the stuff that needs to get done. Like I am worth that level of being taken care of. That's what I really, there's something so important about that for sure.
So if we find ourselves in that zone when we're trying to just work harder, essentially we're overworking ourselves to ignore the true core issues of putting ourselves first. Where it's almost like escapism. We're escaping in our work because that's going to change it.
Yeah. It's a direct quote from my book. Busy is a very safe place to hide.
It is. I mean,
it's celebrated. Productivity. Do the more, it's a very safe place to hide because it's celebrated. People are cheering you on, especially if it's benefiting them. Like, in places like corporate America, especially, they're like, yeah, keep on overworking. We're happy to pay you to do 4 jobs, 1 salary.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, we'll burn ourselves out. Like I will wear how busy I am as a badge of honor. Like, look how great I am. I'm doing so much, when in reality, you could take that space for yourself. Yeah. That's the real flex.
Yeah. And I think too, our bodies know, like your body's telling you something. You have an opportunity to like, okay, this isn't sustainable. This isn't going to last for the long run. I've been watching, it's funny. I play pickleball and some of the people I play with are older, but they're like some of the coolest, most fit, really cool people. And I ask them a lot of questions about that. And they say like, I had to choose to make sure I was taking care of myself at a higher level, or I would have ended up not being able to play pickleball when I'm 70, but they had to do that at a younger age to make sure that when they're there, they can still be out there playing and they're still healthy and they're, active. But there are choices we're making right now that if you play them out, it's not going to be a great outcome. And we get these red flags along the way. We get to choose whether we listen to them or not. So Our bodies are amazing at that. They let us know.
And we are living in a time where burnout is real. Burnout is so prevalent. I mean, I'm even questioning with my health issues over the summer whether it was a product of partial burnout. I mean, literally, my body broke down. I found out, I didn't know that the doctor said, I tested that I had a recent bout of mono. And then that led to all the testing that became very serious and scary. But, it's like, how did I not even know? I just pushed myself through that.
Yeah.
To the point where I had to have my wedding ring cut off. My body was so swollen, 102 fever for days. I couldn't get up and off the ground. I was like a 80, 90-year-old person, which I don't even want to say, because you don't have to be like not being able to move at 80 or 90 years old. Like there's people out there running marathons, but like I was like, couldn't even get off the ground while playing with my children. My body was telling me like burnout is real and our body is showing us. And like you're saying, like we have to listen to that.
Yes. We have overridden our intuition for so long. We've lost the ability to access it. And you can't override your intuition in one area and access it in all the others. So if you've overworked, push through the fatigue, then you cannot access your intuition. Like this is what I see all the time with women. Yeah. Then I can't access my intuition that says, I'm full. I don't need to eat anymore. Because we aren't listening to it over here. And so then I can't access it when I sit down. So then all decisions about what goes into my body are made with my brain. Well, what happens as the day goes on is that our brain gets tired and then we don't make great choices. But if we just had access to our intuition, we would be like, oh, I'm full, or that was enough, or I'm hungry. I'm hungry right now, so I'm going to eat. Like there's just all of these things where we've overridden this intuition, and there are long-term, ramifications for that. One of the women in my book that I interviewed, she was a client and she went to the ER for an issue, and they said, oh, when did you have your heart attack? And she was like, my heart attack? Like, I didn't have a heart attack. And they were like, no, you most definitely had a heart attack. We can see from all of these scans that we've done. And when I was talking to her and she was telling me the story, she said, it was the most haunting words I've ever heard. This is in my book as well. She said, I guess women have silent heart attacks all the time.
Really?
And I was like, oh no, they should not. Because if we were in tune with our bodies at all, you would know that something was happening that was catastrophic in your body, right? But we've just overridden it for the good of everyone else for so long. So yeah, I just think there's something really critical here that we're all learning together, where we've got to really focus in on listening to what our bodies are telling us more, slowing down to be able to even hear that. Critical.
Yeah, we have to slow down to be able to do more. And as women, we have that superpower of our intuition so strong. I mean, men have it. Everyone has their intuition.
They do.
Our intuition is guiding us. But a woman's intuition, there's a reason why we talk about it. A mother's intuition, a woman's intuition, it is so strong. Yeah. Yet when we disconnect from it, like all hell breaks loose. Yet when we actually tap into it, wow, magic happens. It will guide you. And we've gotten so far away. I feel like we're moving more and more closer to it now. Too. We're having these conversations now. And I think that's critical, great, because we've been so disconnected for so long. And I'm excited to see where it goes as we tap back into it.
Me too. We have a lot of great things we can do in this world.
Yeah. Well, how do we get your book? How does our intuition guide us to you and this conversation and work with you?
So my book is called I See You. It is a guide for women who want more influence and impact and income without more work. This is not a book that is like 5 quick tips. It is literally designed to feel like you're sitting down for a conversation with me. And so I would invite you into that space through, you can buy it anywhere you can get a book, but also you can download it on Audible if you're a listener. So book for sure. And then you can also go to my website, super simple. It's just my name, Amy Kemp, AMYKEMP.com, where you can take the free Habit Finder assessment that you took, Courtney. You can really just see more about the work that I do with women in these spaces around habits of thinking. And I'm deeply committed to it. I'm deeply passionate about it, mostly because I've seen the impact that women, particularly women who are leaders and who have influence, make on our world. It's such a positive impact, as do men. But when we have both, it's so much better. There's just some sort of magical, it's great. So that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I've
learned so much. I mean, literally doing your assessment, I'm appalled at where I stand on some of these things, and especially that self-worth, like we were talking about. I don't think that's uncommon. I think a lot of women are going to find themselves in that space, unfortunately.
I'm not surprised. It's super common. It's my work.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
So let's work on that as a whole. And thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to talk to you again. And I'm going to take some me time after this and go get my nails done for the first time in 3 years since my son was born. Like, am I not worthy of that?
You are worthy of that. Yes. Thank you so much.
I'm going to take your advice and go do it. Thank you, Amy. I had such a joy talking. It was such a joy talking to you today.
Thank you.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Amy Kemp, for the great conversation all about our thought habits and creating the space to have the life that we really want to live. If you want to work with Amy, get her book or take her assessment. I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll see everything else we have coming up soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye.